to the fork disappears. All right. Okay, good morning. Okay, let's start again. Good morning, everybody. Welcome to Coriole. My name's Peter Lloyd.
Hi there, my name's Duncan Lloyd, and we are going to taste through a few Chenin Blancs with you today. We have now, our 2021 Chenin Blanc. It comes from about 5 different vineyard sources, 6 different sort of picks. So we get quite a bit of contrast through the winery of different parcels of Chenin. But yeah, it really comes together beautifully to have something quite expressive, a lot of sort of fruit characters, and just a really nice, crisp, dry white.
The Chenin Blanc, the bulk of our fruit at the moment, really, for the last 25 years or so, has been from Blewett Springs. So slightly higher up, typically the latest ripening part of McLaren Vale. But that typically gives us very expressive aromas of rose water and maybe a little bit of lychee. And then typically the vineyards we have on the site here or other parts of McLaren Vale typically give us a slightly steelier apples and pears sort of character. But the combination of the two is lovely.
And I think it's a really nice style that people, a lot of people don't necessarily know the variety, but once they try Chenin, they really enjoy. It's got that nice blend of, like you said, a lot of apples and pears are pretty classic characters. There's often always a bit of a sort of a floral lift, a white jasmine, sort of rosewater character that comes through. And it's all just stainless steel fermented, but you get this just beautiful mid-palate texture to the wine as well. And sort of a nice freshness of acidity, but a kind of a softness of acidity, which we always really enjoy. So I think people, if it's very clean and fresh, but has a nice softness to it.
Chenin Blanc also has a great capacity to age. If you think of the spiritual home of Chenin Blanc, it's the Loire Valley in France. Makes quite a different style to what we would produce here. There is also Chenin Blanc grown widely in South Africa, a little bit in California, and also there's a little bit in Languedoc in southern France. But typically in northern France, it's often the acidity. It's a very high acid variety, so it's often balanced with residual sugar. Whereas here we don't need to do that because the acidity doesn't remain as high. So our wines are always dry. There's never any residual sugar in our Chenin Blanc. Often if you're traveling through that part of the Loire Valley in France, you might go into a chateau or even just a small producer and they might only produce 1 or 2 different wines, but you can try and buy vintages going back 20, 30 years. There's that tufa soil, so very easy to dig caves as basically maturation spaces, and no climate control required, so it's quite a cheap an efficient way to store wine. And so Chenin Blanc just seems to suit extended periods of time of maturation.
Yeah, it's so you see here we've got our 2005 Chenin Blanc, which we've pulled out of the cellar. So we always try to keep some of our Chenin behind and cellar. And I guess a lot of people would drink Chenin young and fresh and vibrant, and that's where the majority of it's consumed. But it is a really great wine to age. And I always say if you find a case in the back of your cellar, just don't throw it out. It'll probably look quite good. But you see here 2005. There's a lot more colour now developed, but it's the freshness. There's a lot of.
But for a 17-year-old white, that's still not a lot of colour.
No.
It's pretty amazing when you think that wine, is that right? 17? Yeah, 17 years old. So and obviously under screw cap, but it does age relatively slowly. And it certainly doesn't mature into this big, fat, greasy, oily, soft wine. There's still great acidity, and the flavours basically just become maybe cooked versions of. So instead of seeing fresh apple, you might see apple pie, and you start to see a little more lanolin and toast and honey. So it's just the next stage of development. This is a 2005. Last year we were drinking the 94, which was another excellent year, but that was 27 years of age, and still was a lovely, lovely drink. So it's certainly a great option at a moderate price to put in the cellar.
Yeah, fantastic. And I'd see that, sort of like grilled pineapple on the back there, but just that freshness of acidity, it's it really holds this wine even at like I said 15 years of age. So yeah, a really great one to pull out.
It's still relatively delicate. You certainly wouldn't find a South Australian Riesling that would look that delicate and fresh, I don't imagine, of the same age.
So that's really an aged version of our kind of our standard Chenin. Since actually 2005, we have been producing a reserve Chenin, known as the Optimist for the optimism, I guess, we showed in the variety, and this was always a wine that was smaller parcels bottled specifically for aging, and really to give us a few years on release before we get out to market. This is our 2017, and this generally comes from our vineyard planted here at Coriole in 1977. It's on sort of a more south-facing slope and has a lot of limestone under the soil. So typically this vineyard will always give us a more minerality, more drive. As a young wine, I always see a lot of grapefruit pith and really kind of long driving steely acidity. So it does quite well to bottle this separately and to keep it for a wine to be aged.
Yeah, it's a lovely site, really well suited to white wine. Has a scrub that protects it, certainly loses the sun several hours each day before any other vineyard on the site. So it's a quirk, I mean, Chenin Blanc works pretty well in McLaren Vale. There's certain areas where you wouldn't plant it. It would be a little too delicate. But also, conversely, in cold, wet years, you can come up against it with disease pressure and botrytis especially. So it's a pretty good choice for us viticulturally for the region. It has a few challenges, but the aim for us is really each year to be able to pick the fruit, have all of that beautiful natural acidity at a moderate level. You're not going to have the really high acidities, but it still is a wine of great refreshment and delicacy.
Yeah, so 2017 was quite a cool year here in McLaren Vale, and this wine does reflect that a bit. But even now, it's a 5-year-old wine, but it's a lot of freshness, still very bright, almost luminescent in the glass. Really kind of fresh, quite a bit of sort of oyster shell and sort of mineral characters on the nose. Just the touch of that kind of toast and lanolin starting to show its head. But yeah, really fresh, still driving palate.
Food-wise, we often say that this is the ultimate accompaniment to fish and chips on the beach. Great acidity to cut through fat, but then delicate enough. Delicate, so you don't want to overwhelm it with really intense, rich food. This certainly can handle a little more weight and intensity. Be great with a really sharp goat's cheese, or maybe a slightly richer fish dish. And on the same token, this here handle a little more weight than this one. Great just on its own as a drink, but yeah, works exceptionally well with goat's cheeses and relatively delicate fish dishes. And even though this is we release it now, you'd confidently sell this for another 10 years, absolutely no problem at all.
So yeah, 3 kind of quite different wines, but all coming from the great Chenin Blanc grape, and for us really highlights, I guess, the versatility that this variety has, and it's still got a strong future in McLaren Vale. We've got great wines going back 30-40 years, and we're pretty committed to it going forward for the next.
Yeah, absolutely. So please try, and if you've got the space in your cellar, make sure you squirrel away a few bottles, because you will certainly be impressed.
Cheers.
Cheers. Amazing how useful both that 05 and the Optimist look.
Yeah.